Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Just give another couple of moments here while everyone gets connected, and we'll get started. All right. Looks like most people are joining at this point, so we can go ahead and jump in. Thank you again, everyone, for taking the time to join us today. We may still be in the month of September, but believe it or not, a lot of us are already gearing up for the holiday season. Absolutely, in light of the COVID pandemic, the shopping experience is going to look very different this holiday season. And as we gear up for this new normal, the goal today is to ensure that your brand is well equipped to provide consumers with the information that they're looking for. So today we've brought together an expert panel to discuss how to build a successful we'll expect to see from your business this holiday season. So with that being said, let's take a minute to briefly introduce myself and today's panelists. My name is Justin Gianninoto. I'm the Director of Marketing for Rio SEO, and I'm going to be moderating the discussion today. I'm lucky to be joined by a few wonderful guests today, and they are Ross Hudgens, founder and CEO of Siege Media, Miranda Miller, content and digital marketing strategist, who we work with very frequently at Rio, and happy to have you with us again today, and Zeke Thomas, SEO strategist with Media Hub. And thank you again all for being here today. Let's get to know our panelists a little bit better. So if you wouldn't mind each just giving a brief introduction, a little bit about your background and what you work on. And then if you could also just share something you're looking forward to maybe about this holiday season. I know it's been a long year, so hopefully the holidays can be a little bit of a reprieve for most of us. Ross, maybe we can start with you.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. As you touched on, founder of Siege Media. We're a content marketing agency that, that helps national brands, generally medium to large size businesses, with content that focuses in search. So we help a lot of national companies with multiple locations, but typically on the content digital side of the equation most frequently. And in terms of what I'm looking forward to, I'm in Austin here currently, and it's just starting to get cool. So I'm very excited for fall and winter to get out of the summer heat.
Absolutely. Miranda, how about you? Let's have you go next.
Thanks for having me. My name is Miranda Miller. I have a small agency, a creative agency, miranda-miller.com. We do content and organic search for mid-sized businesses and for individuals as well.
Awesome. And Zeke, last but not least.
Hi, I'm Ezekiel Thomas, better known as Zeke. I'm an SEO strategist. I'm working with the Mullo Media Hub team. I've been with them for a number of years now. And I specialize in local SEO in the hospitality industry specifically.
Great. Thank you all so much. Again, really excited to have you with us today. I think it's going to be a fantastic conversation. Just a few reminders before we jump into the content for today. Some of these you're probably very familiar with if you've been on some of our webinars before. Although, we won't be able to hear your questions today, we do love to keep these webinars conversational. So please feel free to submit questions throughout the webinar at the bottom of your screen by clicking on the Q&A button on the Zoom control panel, and we'll be sure to answer as many as we can live. If we don't get to your question, we will make sure to follow up with you afterwards. So please feel free to put those questions in there, and we'd love to have you contribute to the discussion. You can also follow along with today's conversation. We will be tweeting throughout the webinar at Rio_SEO, and you can use the hashtag RioWebinar. We'd love to see your questions and thoughts about the webinar there as well. And finally, we have published a blog that goes a little bit further in depth on some of what we're going to cover today. So please make sure to check out the resources on our website. We definitely have a lot more information on holiday marketing. And last but not least, we are going to be recording the webinar. So look forward to an email from us after the webinar with the recording within the next day or so. So with all of that being said, let's get started with our discussion today. And as I said, earlier in the introduction, obviously a lot has shifted this year with the pandemic, and consumer behavior has changed significantly. I think retailers are beginning to, or probably have already begun preparing for, some of these shifts. Just to kick things off and add some context, we did an analysis of local search data recently from about May through late August across about 70,000 retail locations from about 75 or so enterprise brands. And what that showed was that search activity has actually dramatically increased from May through late August. About an 89% increase in overall search traffic and about a 60% increase in total clicks throughout that time. And a bunch of other MPI data there, again, available on our blog if you'd like to read more. But obviously, knowing that consumers are leveraging local search more to kind of guide their shopping experience this holiday season, let's discuss some of the impacts, we're expecting to see. What are some of those changes in shopping habits and trends going into this holiday season? So Ross, maybe we can kick it off with you, and then we'd love to hear everyone's thoughts.
Yeah, sure. So, I think the most obvious one is that people are shopping more online. I think that'll continue to be the case because of COVID. Obviously, we don't know exactly where we'll be as we get closer to Christmas, but it looks like we're trending to be very similar in terms of people wanting to shop online. Connected to that, I think in general, given the impacts of COVID this year and in jobs and the economy, I think people are going to be spending less money. I think there's also some data that's come out that I was looking at a study by morningconsult.com before this, and can definitely share this link, that people spend, they already are saying they're going to spend less this holiday season because of that. And I think additionally, obviously, it's very top of mind to support minority-owned businesses, local businesses more than ever this year. And I think people are going to be doing that more than they did in the past. And those three things in combination, I think, are clear things that stand out in 2020, from my point of view anyways.
Yeah, Zeke or Miranda, any additional thoughts there?
I think Ross hit the mark with that one. I kind of see the trends of online shopping only going to rise, considering the concerns of what COVID brings. So, following that, locally owned businesses and support really just follows in tandem. So yeah, I'm definitely on board with that. It's definitely an interesting times that we're in.
Absolutely. I think I saw a similar study, Ross, about, I think it said that about 40% indicate they're looking to save money leading up to this holiday season. Definitely feel free to throw that link if you have it available in the chat, or we can send that in our follow-up materials as well. Obviously, a very, very interesting shift this year that probably haven't seen in the past few years. As I mentioned earlier, we've seen a pretty substantial increase in some of our MPI data that we're seeing in Google My Business and other platforms. So Miranda, maybe let's go to you on this one. Do you anticipate that trend to kind of continue into the holiday season as more stores begin to open, or maybe some stores close in certain states? How are local listings going to play, maybe a different role this year than in some of the years past?
Well, I think local listings have always been important, but it's exponentially more so this year because, like you said, people are really thinking about where they're spending. Discretionary spending will be down, and they want to know who they're spending their money with. So your business description, super important, and some of the attributes that are being put out by Google My Business, if you can use those and proactively get answers in front of people as they have questions, as they're making decisions, they're going to local listings and they want to see pictures so they understand what kind of experience they're going to have. And something that was maybe a simple decision before, like just going to a store, if you have a pre-existing health condition, that's become quite complicated now. So people are looking for, is this accessible? Are there special store hours for people like me? What are the sanitization procedures? So getting that out there in a proactive way, otherwise you're just kind of relying on them to check it out or call you. And that's probably not going to happen. They're going to go with the location that is meeting their needs in search in the moment they're looking.
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously consumers are in need of more information than ever before going into shopping this holiday season. And one of the other big shifts, I think, will be obviously a shift to more e-commerce and online shopping, and probably curbside pickup and other services like that than in years past. Potentially buy online, pick up in store, or outside of store these days, really. So maybe Ross, let's go to you on this one. What, knowing some of those trends, as consumer behavior continues to shift, what are some of the ways that brands can kind of tackle and anticipate those consumer needs going into the holiday season?
Yeah, tying into the spending less money and shopping online, there's definitely messaging that can be done towards that, like discounts and deals. I mean, of course, we have Black Friday and Cyber Monday, but maybe there's a want to make that stronger messaging this year because of that. Other things I've been reading is people are planning to shop earlier than they have in previous years, which I find interesting. And as Miranda touched on, messaging safety in terms of your local businesses. And if people are going to go in store, I think is super important, as I've seen that as well in my own behavior, of checking those boxes for the companies that are clearly showing that they're doing it right from that point of view.
Yeah, and going back to Miranda, the point that you made around kind of messaging, communications around some of those changes, how can brands think about prioritizing some of their resources? Obviously, there are a lot of different ways that information can be communicated. The listings, obviously, as we've said, have become a really increasingly important piece of the strategy overall. But how can brands think about kind of prioritizing some of those resources this holiday season?
Well, I think the more you can get out there in search and proactively and on your local landing pages, in your listings, on your website, in your social channels where people are looking, you don't then need resources. I mean, you'll still need live chat, but you won't be inundated with the same simple questions over and over. So I would really emphasize like getting your content together. And also for brands, multi-location brands, if you're going to have to make changes across, a region or a large segment of your stores, are you set up to do that? Can you do that quickly? Can you get it out? If you have to change store hours, special hours are super important. Or if there's, some change in policy that you need to get out, if everyone has to wear a mask or everyone has to queue up half an hour before opening or a temperature check or whatever it is, do you have the technology and the team in place right now to distribute that information quickly?
Absolutely. And I mean, I think you hit on this, but one of the key findings, again, from that MPI analysis we did from May through August, was a huge increase in clicks to call. It was 337% increase from May through August. So obviously, even though a lot of this information is present in the listings many times, consumers still feel the need to call and verify. So I think having accurate, up-to-date information obviously is a really critical piece, and make sure that it's consistent across obviously all of the platforms. But let's get into some more of the specifics around marketing strategy and how we're thinking about these shifts in consumer behavior. So maybe Zeke, we'll go back to you on this next one. What are some of the steps that these brands can take to provide customers with a more seamless experience as some of these retailers are shifting to, online to offline type experiences?
Right. So in regards to this, I believe that there are three items to consider: research, consistency, and optimization. So when we're looking at research, we want to look into which channels your customers are using, and invest in those channels. Map your customer's journey. So it's really important to map out your customer's journey from one platform to another, just to ensure that the journey isn't, doesn't negatively impact them. Match your content with every marketing channel. So what you want to do here is just follow best practices when, looking for these channels. And for example, it would be something along the lines of, image optimizations for Instagram and Pinterest, having optimized videos for YouTube, having long form content available for blogs. You want to provide cross-channel customer support. You want to make sure your brand can handle customer support on multiple channels, such as email and social media and messaging. Continuously test your campaigns. Continuously test your campaigns. This can consist of a number of things, including campaign subject lines, test post formats, social media campaigns, or even different call to actions on landing page designs on a website. When we're looking at consistency, you'll want to ensure that these channels literally mirror to the T of all your information. 80% of your internet users prefer to use a search engine to look up information about a local business. So any information inconsistency can sincerely negatively impact your visibility, affect your accurate data collection, and mislead and negatively impact your user experience too. For example, if you haven't updated your address on your knowledge graph, and a consumer is looking to do an shop online in-store grab, and basically they're at the wrong location. So I can see that how that can easily be something like a ruined experience, right? And then lastly, as you mentioned earlier, Justin, considering that the current times that we're in, and we would probably want to be mindful of, waiting online for certain things, why not consider, pick up in-store initiatives as well? I think this is a smart way to cater to your consumers' desires to shop online and then, pick up the merchandise if they want to supersede the shipping, right? If they want their product a bit in a bit more expedient manner.
I think those are all excellent points, and really segues well into a lot of what we've seen. We also did some research recently on keywords and how those have changed this year and in leading up to the holiday season. Obviously, customers, you hit this, are looking for more buy online, pick up in store, contactless payments, and that doesn't only apply to retail. Obviously, that applies to a few different verticals, but there was a Salesforce study recently that predicted that we will see 90% more digital sales in the last holiday season. And obviously, some brands may be more well positioned for that than others. So maybe going back to you, Miranda, how can brands think about promoting those types of services, such as buy online, pick up in store, throughout their different marketing channels?
Right. And I think that's the thing. There's so many different channels where people might be encountering your brand and discovering you for the first time. And so are they finding the same helpful information on Yelp as they are on TripAdvisor, as they are on Google, on Facebook? And so I think understanding exactly where people are finding your brand and where those opportunities are to interact is super important. And then making sure that you're using attributes that are available to you that puts that information front and center. So yes, you can order online. Make sure it's the right URL that takes them straight to your online ordering platform and not just the homepage, right? So go through as a consumer and make sure that wherever people are coming in contact with your brand, it is a seamless experience to understand, okay, here's what I can do, and then actually do it.
That's always the challenging part is getting the implementation right so that it does really work as a seamless experience. I guess I'll open this back up to anyone that wants to weigh in. Any other tips for brands to kind of help ensure more of that seamless experience? Obviously, a variety of platforms and channels that come into play here.
I think with e-commerce, we are seeing this huge shift in adoption, but people still have the same concerns they did last year. So they just have a bigger concern now, and that is the health and safety of going into a store. But there are still a large number of people who are leery about sharing their credit card information online, or the process of, putting things in a cart and ending up with that at the end. And so I think anywhere that you can reiterate your shipping policies, your return policies, help them understand what this experience is going to be like and proactively take away that fear, and understand that just because people are online shopping now, it doesn't mean that they're all, pros and totally comfortable with it. That's going to help be the retailer of choice this season.
Absolutely. And, especially when it comes to a multi-location brand, it's really critical to, optimize for different audience segmentation, make sure you're targeting the right customers at each location. Maybe Zeke, will go to you on this one. Can you discuss some of the ways brands can think about localizing some of their marketing initiatives, especially, given everything happening with the COVID pandemic? Various parts of the country may be in different phases of reopening. There may be different regulations. How can some of these brands think about localizing their strategies this season?
Right. Well, a great audience segmentation strategy can glean priceless information about your consumers, right? The more granular you are with segmentation, the more customizable you can cater your message for an effective, localization strategy. And so I think having these insights into the consumer behavior, preferences, affinities will be very effective in the holiday season, because you can compile these insights and have an effective message for the product promotion or anything that's catered to the demographic with a pretty impactful ROI. an example of this could be something along the lines of like a targeted email campaign that reaches out to a customer based on past online purchases, and then using this information to cater to a message that has the nearest businesses, locations, deals, discounts, any specials or anything along those lines.
Makes a lot of sense. And, I think a critical theme around a lot of what we've discussed today really comes down to having the right content on the right channels at the right time. So let's zero in on content strategy a little bit here. And obviously integral piece of any marketing strategy, and especially with, some of the keyword shifts that we've seen this year, making sure that you have fresh content at a local level that can help you really rank in search. So Ross, let's go to you. What types of content, are you thinking about that brands should be creating this holiday season to kind of address some of these unique needs and challenges of this year?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the themes I think we've touched on here is just making it very prominent what your holiday shopping experience will be from a safety standpoint, and also how you can purchase without touchless purchase, as you kind of touched on, and things like that. Having that prominent on your website so you don't have to think about it, I think, is a no-brainer. One of the things I commonly saw right when COVID happened is kind of that pop-up or like hello bar at the top that says like what Target is doing during COVID-19. I think something like that could be relevant during holiday shopping season, given heightened anxiety about, are there going to be a lot of people and things like that. And as Miranda touched on, I think there's some nice value in thinking about some of the things you can do now. It can be, hopefully this is not something that persists, but like as she mentioned, like this safety was always a concern. So now you can build something that's evergreen around that, what you're doing there, and hopefully that will persist after this. And although safety will continue to be top of mind. But for other content things that I think are relevant right now is a lot of people are searching obviously around the change and how they might behave during Q4. I think from a content standpoint, if you're doing inspiration for the home, or things people might purchase, there is more demand for home focused concepts. If they're doing something for Thanksgiving or Christmas, often they might add safe or remote or things, those kind of keyword sets on top of that. So you kind of should anticipate those changes preemptively in order to capture that. And kind of looking at some of the summer trends, I think, can be informative for the comparable version of what your business's thing is, of how they might apply a COVID-19 version of that, putting it prominent in your architecture to allow it to rank. And in general, I always suggest going to Pinterest trends, Google trends. Those are great indicators of coming demand, and will show you those trends in front of many of the keyword tools that exist.
Absolutely. And as you kind of define your content strategy and really map out at a high level what you're trying to achieve, and some of those, incorporate some of the terminology that you touched on, Ross. Obviously, a huge piece of both local and organic rank is on-page optimization as well. So maybe Zeke, you can talk a little bit about some of the on-page elements and content the brand should be incorporating, whether that's on their local pages, maybe their corporate site, how they can promote special services and offers. What types of on-page optimizations should brands be making?
For sure. To prepare for this, I think you want to utilize the same similar SEO techniques that you would in any optimization campaign. To promote any new content on your page, the goal is to always ensure that your content is hyper relevant. Your subject is in the title tag, your subject is in the URL. Include your subject in the image and alt text. But let me caveat to that as well, because alt text optimization is a bit tricky. You want to be as natural and descriptive as possible, in addition to, if you can and when it applies, include these keywords in it. But we always want to follow 88 best practices when it comes to just being as descriptive as possible, and then doing the ancillary items. In addition to this, try to specify, a couple of times throughout your content about the subject, while following, the EAT protocols for readability's sake. Make sure that you're an authority about your content, provide unique insights about your content so that you stand out and become the outlier. Make sure that, you link back to your category and subcategory category page when you're referencing a product. Ensuring that your internal links are optimized and you're linking back to your homepage. You also want to make sure that you have efficient keyword research, like you stated earlier, that targets localized content, right? So this includes, applying local modifiers that best identifies your local listing. And so this can be implemented into the meta title, I feel.
Yeah, obviously a ton of different considerations there from a content standpoint. I think that we could probably have a webinar just focused on that, but I think you touched on a lot of the key aspects that are going to be really critical as brands kind of shift gears into that type of content in the next few months. Shifting gears just a little bit, I want to make sure that we cover a little bit about reputation management as well. I think, that's become a really key aspect of managing your local presence. Obviously, considering COVID and some of the changes this year, especially, I think consumers are going to be utilizing that as a feedback channel, as potentially a channel to gain additional information from brands. And obviously, reviews do have an impact on brands' ranking in search as well. So as customers ask questions and highlight feedback for your brand this holiday season, maybe Zeke, we'll go back to you again. How do reviews impact your visibility in local search? And do you have any tips for how brands can leverage on-page content to kind of surface customer sentiment and improve your local SEO?
That's a good question. As you stated earlier, the importance of reviews have grown over the years. Currently, I believe it's 16% of the ranking factors in 2020 compared to like 12% back in 2018. And so for clarity, this is more in reference to the local pack and local pack finder, compared to like the 6% that it consists of when we're looking at overall organic traffic. With that said, I think reviews that have, a high numerical Google rating, positive sentiment and review text, the quantity of native Google reviews. And let me make sure that I'm clear that this isn't to like diminish the value of any third-party platforms like TripAdvisor or Yelp, because they definitely play a part in this as well. With these factors, they tend to carry a positive ranking signal and it aids in your site. In addition to this, you also want to make sure that you respond to these reviews. Engagement is also a factor that you want to consider. And this kind of makes sense as well, considering that 90% of American users are, reported to read reviews before making a purchase. So it's kind of important, and you'll want to make sure that these are pretty much in good standing. And so to effectively leverage this on your platform when it comes to content, I think what you would want to do is use good reviews as a social proof and have a testimonial section on your copy to promote your brand. In addition to this, utilize reviews when you're referencing your products as well. I think following these two key factors, I think you'll put yourself in a good place when it comes to utilizing reviews at its best.
Yeah, I think a lot of good considerations there. Obviously, review and reputation management is a key piece of obviously your overall customer experience and overall customer service strategy, really, to kind of helping ensure that seamless customer experience. So kind of building on that, Miranda, should brands, you touched on this a little bit earlier in terms of live chat, but obviously there are a ton of different channels for customer feedback. Should brands, be prepared to increase potentially live chat support? And how might that factor into, larger reputation management or holiday strategy at the local level?
Right. I think live chat and review response go hand in hand, and you might even have the same team, like a front or a customer facing response team on this. But it's important that at the brand level, you have an overall view of what's happening across all these different platforms and your hundreds or thousands of locations. How are you making sure that not one review falls through the crack? And so, Google says they expect a response to every review. Yelp says they expect businesses to respond to every review. And doing that quickly can actually save the experience. It could actually fix the customer experience at that point. But it also gives you a chance to have that response live there forever. I mean, it'll be 3 to 5 to 10 years, who knows, that other customers are going to see that you were engaged and that you cared and that you tried to fix it. And it's even more important in some industries like finance or healthcare. There might be, HIPAA violating content or something that is particular to a certain banking client or something. And so it's important that you have a documented process and that the people who are responding to these reviews understand, okay, when are we going to delete? When are we going to escalate? Are we trying to get people into a private chat so that we can fix this? And you might even have some prepared scripts and templates. If you have had that in years past, they might need updated with the types of issues that you're going to have around social distancing and masks and sanitization and that, and the feedback you'll be getting in reviews to do with those things this year. So I think this is the time right now to take a look at, are we set up to scale if the volume of reviews massively increases, and if we have a lot more of this type of question, do our frontline people know how to answer that? And update your scripts and train your people now so that they're set up to do this when the holidays come.
Yeah, you touch on a lot there. I mean, what do you guys think? I'll open this up again to the whole panel. Some of the top questions brands should be prepared to answer this holiday season. I think you touched on a lot of it in terms of safety protocols and things like that. Anything else that brands should be prepared to answer, or other considerations that you might have for strategy to kind of facilitate operationally, answering these questions within your organization?
I think a majority of the questions are going to revolve around safety and then how to best streamline any kind of purchase or any kind of consumer transaction. And so I think being able to answer those questions in a step-by-step manner, providing insights in regards to that, and even guiding them through the entire process, and just having that response and communication with the user will definitely prove beneficial, and it's definitely worth considering when you're catering to reviews as well.
One thing companies could do is insert their brand name, add COVID or coronavirus, and then you'll see kind of like what those things people are searching. Like I just did Target, and you get COVID hours, COVID testing site, COVID hours for seniors, masks, etc. A lot of it is for employees as well, but those kind of variables might be a good hint. And if you're a smaller company, you could do the equivalent for people that are getting more volume in store, but that could be a good inspiration for content you should have on site.
Yeah, and I think just don't be afraid to ask. You can, include a survey link in an email to your clients, but also ask your employees as well. They are your frontline people who are hearing the questions and helping people through this daily. So see what the concerns are that people are having, because it could be surprising. It might not be what you think.
Right, absolutely. And one of the other kind of key sources of that insight and information might be social media. We haven't really touched on that too much, but this year with the pandemic, social media use has skyrocketed, unsurprisingly, as people have more time, possibly to be on social media. But that may be another good source of customer insight that you can look for, especially with some of the larger brands, as you mentioned, Ross. But let's open it up to the whole panel and just maybe touch on social for a bit here, as we kind of have a few minutes left to wrap up. How can brands prepare this holiday season, when considering their social media presence? Obviously, listings are a huge component here, on page elements on your website, but social is another place that consumers may be looking for information. So how can brands prepare, and are there any channels in particular that you would recommend keeping an eye on?
I think we would focus on the channels that the customers are using, right? And invest in that. And we can best utilize those channels by keeping them updated with any kind of any changes or any kind of circumstantial incidents that are occurring with the brand. Just keeping that line of communication with the consumer is going to really prove impactful for them. I think transparency will prove beneficial and allow users to engage with the brand more doing so.
And having proper staffing to support on social, I think, is critical too. I forget who shared the stat that was 90% expected increase or something like that. Obviously, you could use that as a benchmark to your own vertical of what that appropriate change in customer support online should be, so people aren't waiting for days to get a response or even hours.
Yeah, I think paid social is going to be huge this year too, or it should be anyway. You can often get more bang for your buck than you could with paid search. And I'm not saying do it instead of paid search, but I think you want to have a really clear picture of how each location is performing in local search, and maybe you can use paid social to sort of augment getting promotions out there and permeate those really difficult markets in search.
Yeah, and I think Ross, the study you mentioned again was that Salesforce study saying that they're expecting about 90% increase in digital sales this holiday season, and obviously with additional services, curbside, drive-through, in-store pickup, some services that consumers maybe have never utilized before. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of questions around that, so definitely a key component there. We have a question that came in, just to shift gears a little bit here. Anyone can feel free to weigh in on this. We've seen that Google has rejected ads that mention COVID or have an image that mentions COVID. Is there any way to avoid that while still promoting safety messaging? Anything that you guys have experienced there?
Yeah, I think you have to think of the spirit of what Google is trying to avoid there. They don't want, a corner store ranking for any kind of COVID term when there's the World Health Organization and multiple health units trying to get information out there. So they don't want to be competing on that level, or people using the term in disingenuous ways. So I think there's nothing prohibiting you from speaking about your, enhanced store hours and your enhanced cleaning protocol and your staff training and, curbside pickup. And I think we have something on the Rio blog actually about the terms people are using, local marketing keyword trends right now, and what you should be using to let people know what's changed with your business.
Yes, definitely go check that out. Appreciate the plug for the Rio blog there. A lot more information on keyword trends up there. As we wrap up, guys, I think we just have a couple of minutes left here. Any final, parting thoughts, top of mind considerations that you would leave our audience with today as they, consider how to adjust their strategy for this year? Maybe Miranda, we'll start with you, and we can just get a final thought from everyone before we wrap up.
Sure. I think, a strategy for this holiday season just has to be agile. If you plan it out and think it's all going to happen the way that you've planned over the next 3 months, it's not going to be that way. So literally be prepared for anything. And that means having the people and the technology in place to support whatever it is, however you need to pivot. Times of crisis are sometimes great times of growth too. So we saw a lot of businesses really explode after the 2008 financial crisis. And they were the ones who could move quickly, and they weren't too married to old ideas. And so I think same thing here, just be agile, be ready to take advantage of opportunities as they present themselves.
All right.
Yeah.
Ross?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I was going to say the way I often think is try to be short-term, but also long-term focused. I kind of touched on it a little earlier, but is there something you're building for this very unique, hopefully very unique scenario that still has a long-term value outside of this? Maybe there's a way to combine those functions when you think about deploying resources, or you'll end up hopefully still getting positive ROI from it today, but then it'll just be something you can never utilize again. So just think about that with processes, standard operating procedures, everything. I think there's multiple touch points of ROI you can potentially leverage here.
Absolutely. And Zeke, last word to you.
I think pretty much from my standpoint, having and ensuring that you cater to whatever the customer's needs are, and it's adhered to. And in regards to this, the best way to find this out would be using a frequently asked questions page or so, right? In building out this page, you'll glean insights as to what's going on, what's wrong, what's going right, and you'll be able to answer these questions. I think having this in place just to make sure that the page itself is very prominent. You'll want to mark it up, using schema, utilize features, try to rank for that position 0 for that feature snippet so that you show up whenever a user is looking for you, and then, engage with that experience then. Try to create pages that that engages the users, that solves problems in a step-by-step manner. Provide 24-hour assistance. There are a few ways to employ this. We touched on this a bit earlier. Employing chatbots to answer some of the more easier questions, just so that you can glean insights on these items. In addition to once you've gone through that process, you leave the more optimized questions and answers for your customer service rep, right? So I think making securing the foundation is definitely first and foremost when it comes to taking these under consideration.
Excellent. I really appreciate all the insight that you guys have shared. We're just about at 40 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. But I think we covered a lot of ground here as far as making preparations for this really unique holiday season. As mentioned a few times, we have a lot more information up there on our blog, so please feel free to go and check that out. And if you'd like to get in contact with any of our panelists, do you guys want to share a Twitter handle or best way to reach you?
All right. Admittedly, I don't have Twitter. I'm sorry. Don't tell anybody. Everybody here, don't tell anybody. Just
just at Ross Hudgens, my first name, last name. We'd love to connect with you all there.
I think I am at Miranda LM Writes, miranda-miller.com.
Awesome. And Zeke, I think you're on LinkedIn. People can find you there, right?
yeah,
There we go.
you can search for Zeke Real Thomas on LinkedIn and you'll find it.
Again, thank you all so much. I think we provided a lot of value today, covered a lot of different topics here. If anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to follow up with us afterwards. You can feel free to shoot us an email as well at marketing@rioseo.com. Shoot me a message on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'd like to thank everyone for joining today. And again, a special thanks to our awesome group of panelists today, Ross, Miranda, and Zeke. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to moderate the discussion today. I hope to see you all again in an upcoming webinar, but goodbye for now. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Bye, everyone.